Winston Churchill's speechwriters had a problem. You see, they'd bring Winston a script, a new speech, and he'd look at it, but then he'd ask them one simple question. What's the bottom line? My name's Kyle Murter. I'm a public speaking coach, author, and champion. And what Winston Churchill was really asking is, what's the point of this speech? And this is just one of the ways great speakers think. They think in bottom lines. What is the one point I want to leave the audience with? Because ultimately, at the end of your presentation, the audience are not going to remember everything. So you've got to decide, what do you want them to remember? And once you get clear on that message, on that bottom line, then you can begin on honing in on that, and you can emphasize it. You can share it multiple times. You can repeat it throughout your presentation, like our good friend Martin Luther King. What was his key message? You got it. I have a dream. And he said it multiple times to get you to remember that dream. But something else Winston Churchill and Martin Luther King have in common is they think about what the audience wants. You see, the average speaker will think about what they want. They will think about how they want their team to do this, how they want people to think in this way, how they want the company to make more profits. They only think of their own agenda and their own goals. Great speakers take the time to think about what the audience wants. A fantastic example is Steve Jobs. When he was launching the iPod, he did not get on stage and tell you about all the technicalities of what the iPod does and how the software works and this and that. No, he said one thing, and he made it abundantly clear. 1,000 songs in your pocket. That was his bottom line. And why did he choose that? Because it appealed to the audience. Everybody loved the idea of a simple device in your pocket that had 1,000 of your favorite songs. That's something that you want, that I want, and that everybody wants. And that's why it was compelling, and that's why it's remembered decades after the iPod has been released. But a final thing that makes great speakers different from everyone else in terms of how they think is that they take the time to consider how to make their vision real. Now, what do I mean by vision? I'm talking about the future that you want to create. You see, the reason we give speeches and presentations is because we want something to change in the future. We want our reality to be different going forward in some way. And great speakers take the time to think about how they can make that vision clear in their audience's mind. And often they do this through word choice that evokes images. Here's an example from that famous speech from our friend Martin Luther King. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. Now just look at those words. They create a vivid image because they paint a picture of where it is on the red hills of Georgia, of who's there, sons of former slaves and former slave owners, and what are they doing? They're at the table of brotherhood. Clear imagery in your mind of what he wants his future to look like, our future to look like. And when you can create that clear vision, people begin to believe in your ideas. They want to follow in your footsteps. They want to get on board with your movement. And that's the key. And it all comes from first thinking about how we can make that vision we have in our heads as speakers real for our audience. Now, one thing that Martin Luther King, Steve Jobs, Winston Churchill, and all great speakers have in common as well is that they all have some form of coach. They have someone who is giving them feedback on their presentations, telling them this is working, this is not working. That's part of the key to becoming a great speaker. And you can have that as well, because I offer one-to-one coaching where I can give you feedback on your delivery, your body language, your voice, on your content, your storytelling, your structure, and even your slides if you have them as well. If you're interested in taking your speaking to the next level, if you're serious about it, the best thing to do is email me at kyle@confidencebydesign.co.uk, and I'll get right back to you and we can schedule a call to see if we can work together. See you in the next video.